Hi, welcome back to Storytime with Dave Booker. Today we're going to continue on with the final chapters of Sheriff in a Small Town. So let's begin. This is Strangers. Talbot woke early and began to get breakfast ready. Kayla was amused at how solicitous he was being now that she was pregnant. Fussed around her like a hen with one chick. Sometimes he was so attentive she was thrilled when he finally went to work. In the office, Talbot was fidgeting and trying to focus on the office paperwork. Rocky was off, so he'd be alone for the rest of the day. He was relieved when the phone finally rang. "Is that the sheriff?" Gave a voice Talbot didn't recognize. "Well, this is the sheriff's office. Deputy Talbot here. How can we help you?" The voice was a little breathless, as though the person on the other end had been running. "You might want to get out to the Lawrence place. They've had a fire in their hen house. I just called the fire department, but thought you'd want to know just in case." "Okay, thanks for the heads up. Heading out now." Talbot called into Rocky that he was heading out on a fire call. All incoming calls were transferred to Rocky's phone until he returned. Rocky and Talbot had agreed on this after they had missed an emergency call. It hadn't been as big an emergency as the caller had thought, but still, it could have been. Talbot arrived at the farm in good time, and the fire was out by the time he got there. As he looked the damage over, he felt ashamed that the smell of cooked chickens was making him hungry. The farmer was worrying over how it could have caught fire. Talbot was making a rigorous examination. He discovered that the cord had an area of exposed and frayed wiring that had probably sparked and set the hen house ablaze. The farmer examined the wire and agreed. "I don't see how it got frayed, though. Hens don't bite at the cord as a rule." Talbot left, and the farmer put in a call to his insurance company. Back at the office, Talbot called Rocky to tell him he'd returned. Seated on a bench near the was making annotations on a pad. He had arrived soon after Talbot left and marked the time, assuming that the officer had departed right after the call. Checking the door, he assured himself that no one else was on duty. This fit in well with his estimate on how things worked in this town. The man waited and smoked until the patrol car returned, then noted the time on his list. In a small room at the YMCA, the man was finishing some notes. Let's see, fire started at 0600, called fire department, sheriff 602 to 607 inclusive. Fire department arrived 617, sheriff arrived 620. Fire department 15 minutes, sheriff 13 minutes. Sheriff arrived alone, so a deputy either left at the courthouse or off duty. Check later, it was the deputy who would arrive off duty. No one on duty to answer the phone when sheriff or deputy alone. Estimated time for robbery stands at 7 minutes. We'll need to work on longer time fuse to allow for getting into town and doing the job with enough time to get out of the area. Estimated travel time at 10 minutes. Total of half an hour to complete required for successful operation. Excuse me. The man slumped in his chair, figuring that the sheriff would take his time returning to town. It was possible at that distance he had done the test at. Running the wire that heated the hen house worked, but he wanted this way to start the fire with more control. He walked outside and headed back to the bank. Trying to estimate the bank's desk holdings was difficult, as it seemed everything was done out of the till, and that was all they used. He watched as people deposited small amounts or cash checks from modest sums. Feeling he had chosen the wrong town, he was walking towards the door when a man walked in with a lunchbox. He paused to see if the man was bringing someone lunch or just doing a transaction on his break. From the look of the man, he must have been a farmer or farmhand. The teller comments was just what he needed. As the man approached, the teller laughed. "Right on time, Mr. Calafario. You're about the most regular customer we've ever had." Mr. Calafario laughed. "Yep, I like to keep on a schedule. One deposit a month and one withdrawal every week when I take out the payroll." He pulled stacks of bills and a few checks out of a bag and laid them by the deposit slips. "That's a deposit of $32,687. Teller's face registered concern. You really ought to have the sheriff escort you when you're going to come in. That's a lot of money to be carrying around. The man chuckled. Look at me. Do I look the kind of man who has a big wad of cash? Dressed in coveralls and old boots, he didn't look as if he did. The man from the YMCA had seen enough. Seated outside the pen, emerged. Following him wasn't difficult, as the man only went to the end of the block and turned into a general store. Loitering just inside, he saw the man go into the back office with manager written over the door. As soon as he reemerged to assist with customers and ensure things were running smoothly. Sitting in his room at the Y, the man decided that robbing the bank was not the choice he wanted. Well, if this guy was as regular as he said, then he should just rob the owner of the general store when he went to make the deposit. Assuming that he would take the same route every time, the man decided that he would leave for the next town and then come back on the first of the month. Packing his bag, he checked out. After the man checked out, Mary Sue Riley wheeled her cart into the room to get clean for the next occupant. She stripped the bedding and stuffed it into the pillowcase before dropping it into the laundry bag. Dusting came next, as well as ensuring the furniture was all placed back where it should have been. In the desk, she found a few coins that she tucked into her pocket, vacuuming and finally dumping the trash into a bin on her cart. As was her custom, she checked the trash in case the last occupant had dropped some important papers or something. She flipped through the crumpled papers, and sometimes she found a few dollars in them. She liked to use the found money to buy herself a treat. And no luck this time, but one of the papers caught her attention. It was a timetable, and the word fire leapt off the page. She'd already heard about the fire uptown, and she assumed they might be somehow related. She tucked the paper into her pocket and finished off the room. Eating her lunch, she ran out and down to the courthouse. Talbot's head jerked up at her slam-bang entrance. Sheriff, I think I might have something you ought to see. She laid the paper on the desk, mentioned she had to get back to work, and sped out the door. Talbot picked up the sheet and looked at his notes from the morning fire call. Time smashed. Going over to the Y, he got the information on the occupant. Mr. James Smith had checked out. Had he left a forwarding address? Yes, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C. Talbot asked if they thought that address just wasn't a little unusual. They said that was the address he had given, and they hadn't thought anything more about it. Talbot hung up the phone, muttering, idiots. Rocky came in to hang out, as Agnes had gone to see her father for a day or two. Sorry to drop in, but I can't stand being home alone. Without Agnes there, it just feels shrugged empty. Talbot continued to look at the sheet. Rocky, I think we just missed a robbery. The guy who recently left the Y dropped this sheet in the trash. Looks as though he had planned to set a fire, then while everyone was out, he was going to rob the bank. Rocky was impressed at the amount of planning the man had done. You know, it would probably have worked, too. We'd have been out on the run, taken some time over the investigation, then probably would have stopped off for a bite on the way back. Hell, he did have plenty of time. Talbot suggested that they at least give the bank a heads up. In the bank president's office, Rocky thought, while Talbot explained what had happened. The bank president called in the bank guard and had him keep an eye out for anyone suspicious. The guard looked mildly offended. Sir, I always do. I had my eye on the guy that was in here earlier. Talbot whipped out his notebook. Can you give me a description? The guard closed his eyes and tried to remember. About 5'5", wearing a dark suit and tie, fedora hat. Well, that's about all. His face was in shadow because the hat was pulled low. Oh, he was probably an older guy because I saw gray hair on the back of his head and gray in what little of the beard I saw. He stayed for a quarter of an hour as if he was making out a deposit. He was heading out, but he stopped for a bit longer. Rocky was curious. Why did he stop and how long did he take? He stopped when Mr. Calafario came in to make his deposit. He left before the transaction was completed, so He might have thought he knew him or something. Rocky suggested that he might have considered Mr. Calafario a better target. Plenty of cash in one take. Talbot agreed. Plus, he's a regular as clockwork, never deviates from his route. I bet you anything he'll be back at the beginning of the next month. Rocky and the bank president agreed. Well, we'll be ready for him when he comes. Rocky grinned and sent out a fax warning about a possible bank robbery in the area, along with a description. All right, that's where we're going to stop today. We'll do the rest of that chapter and then get towards the end of the book. So that's it for today, and we'll have another reading in a couple of days. So I look forward to seeing you. Thank you for being here. Be good to yourself. Bye.